Okay, so we are going to be talking about long division, but now with polynomials. So in class, I asked you guys to work this long division problem to not only kind of bring your brain back to long division, but I'm going to show you what we did in this problem is actually identical to what we're going to do in this problem. So I'll be kind of explaining what I did over here as I walk us through this polynomial long division problem. So, the first thing, okay, this one was 37 divided by 2. So first of all, we need to figure out what goes where. Okay, so first of all, this is a number that's getting divided into, so this is our dividend or our polynomial. Okay, so this right here is called the dividend. And then the number, or the item that you're dividing into the dividend is called the divisor. So this is our divisor. Okay, so if you see here, this is our dividend, sorry, and this is our divisor. So if you see here, we put the divisor on the outside of our long division bar and our dividend on the inside. So that's the first step. Okay, we want to put the divisor on the outside and the dividend on the inside. So that is what I'm going to be doing first. Alright, so my divisor is x plus 2. Now though, when we're writing in our dividend, we have to be careful. Okay, our exponents must go down by 1 each time. If not, we're going to be doing something called putting a 0 placeholder in. So let's see what happens. I have an x squared. Now the goal is to go down by 1 exponent every single time. Okay, the next thing I see is 8x to the first. So that's 1 less than that, so we're good to go. Okay, so I have minus 8x. And then my next one is my term without the variable. So this one we're good to go. Now, in the next problem, if you see here, we do not go down by 1 each time. We have something to the 4th power, but we don't have something to the 3rd power. We have something squared, but we don't have something to the 1st power. So something different will happen in that one. But we'll talk about that one when we get there, so you'll have to wait on that. Okay, now, the process we use in long division. Okay, if you look over here, when we did 2 and a 37, we started with the 2 and the 3. That's why I underlined them. And we asked ourselves, 2 times what gives us 3? Or what's the closest thing I could multiply to 2 and get 3? Well, the closest thing I can do is multiply it by a 1. 2 times 1 gets me the closest possible value I can to 3 without writing a decimal. Okay, so I wrote that on top. Okay, so that's the very first thing we're going to do. I'm going to start with the very first number here and the very first number here, just like I did here. I did the 2 and the 3. And we're going to ask ourselves, x times what will give me an x squared? Holy hot dog, you guys, you're correct. X times x will give me an x squared. And just like over here, you write that number on top. 2 times 1 gives me something really close to 3. This time, though, x times x definitely gives me x squared. So we're good to go there. Okay, now the next thing we did over here. Okay, after I said 2 times 1 gives me something really close to 3, then on here I actually did 2 times 1. That's why I wrote multiply. So 2 times 1 is 2, but if you notice down here, I wrote the opposite of that, which is negative 2. Okay, same thing I'm going to do over here. I'm going to multiply these two together. So I'm going to multiply. But down here, I'm going to do the opposite, just like I did over here. 2 times 1 is 2, but down here we did the opposite, which is negative 2. So x times x is x squared, but down here I'm going to do the opposite of x squared, which is negative x squared. So I'm going to do that, negative x squared. So down here we're writing the opposite of what we multiply. Okay, now, we are multiplying everything to the x. So, not only do I multiply the x up here, I'm going to multiply the 2 up there as well. So, we multiply both of the numbers to what we get over there, but the only thing that I write up here is pertaining to this number, if that makes sense. Okay, so, 2 times x gives me 2x, but down here, I'm going to write the opposite. And I'm going to write it below its like term, which is negative 8x. So, 2x, the opposite of 2x, is a negative 2x. Okay, now if you see down here, after we multiplied and then wrote the opposite down here, we added down. 3 minus 2 gave me a 1, so I'm going to add down as well. X squared minus x squared cancels out, turns to 0, and negative 8x minus 2x gives me a negative 10x. Negative 10x. Okay, and then finally, I will recap what I'm doing, but finally, after I subtracted, I did 3 minus 2 and got 1, but then I had to bring down the next number, which was 7. So guess what, you guys? I'm going to bring down the next number. Now, when we do polynomial long division, you must always have as many items down here as you have terms up here. So since I have 2 terms up here, I must have 2 terms down here. That's very important. Okay, so I'm going to recap what I did. Now, polynomial long division is kind of complicated at first, but I promise you, the more and more I do this, the more you're going to get. Okay, so what I did, I started here, I said x times what gives me x squared? Well, that was an x. Then what I did, I multiplied both of these numbers to the x, but I wrote the opposite down here. So x times x was x squared, but the opposite of x squared is negative x squared. And 2 times x is 2x, but the opposite of 2x is negative 2x. And then I added down, that canceled out, that was negative 10x, and I brought the next number down. Now, something you should notice, this first term should always cancel out. If it doesn't cancel out, you need to rethink what you did. Okay, so now let's come back to here. So I brought down my 7, then I went down here. That's why I underlined this. Now I'm looking 2 times what gives me 17, or the closest possible thing to 17. Well, that was 8. Okay, 2 times 8 is 16, which is the closest thing I can get to 17. So then what I did, I multiplied the 2 to the 8, but I wrote the opposite down here. So 2 times 8 is 16, okay, but I wrote the opposite, which was negative 16. Then I added down and got a 1. Okay, so let's use that logic again. I'm going down here now, just like I did down here. Okay, I'm going to look at this term and the number down here now. X times what gives me a negative 10x? Well, guess what, you guys? That is a negative 10. And I write that value up here, just like I did over here. 2 times 8 gave me the thing that was closest to 17, so I wrote it up there. Okay, then we are going to be multiplying both of these numbers to the negative 10. Okay, so x times negative 10 is negative 10x, but I'm going to do the opposite down here, which is plus 10x. So this is the opposite. And then the same thing with the 2. 2 times negative 10 is negative 20, but I'm going to write the opposite of that, which is positive 20. Alright, and just like here, we added down here, I got 1. So let's see what happens when we add down here. Negative 10x plus 10x cancels out. Again, if you notice, these first ones always cancel out. Alright, then negative 26 plus 20 gives me a negative 6. Holy hot dog. Alright, then when I got down here, okay, I went back down here. 2 times what gives me a 1? Well, that doesn't work out. So we have reached our remainder. So this, you guys, is our remainder. And what I did, I put the remainder over the divisor. And that was my final answer. My answer was the quotient, which is what you get on top, 18. And then I put the remainder over the divisor. That's all I did. I put the remainder, which is 1, and divided that bad boy by 2 and got 18 and 1/2. Same thing here. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say x times what gives me negative 6. Well, guess what, you guys? It doesn't work. I can't multiply anything to x to get negative 6 unless I'm multiplying by fractions, and we cannot do that. So I know I have reached my remainder. So this right here is my remainder. So my final answer is my quotient, which is x minus 10. So I'm going to write x minus 10. And then I'm going to add on the remainder, which is negative 6, and throw that bad boy over my divisor, which is x plus 2. And that would be my final answer, you guys. So that's it. I know that looks weird, but that is my final answer. So again, I wrote my quotient and then added the remainder of the divisor. 18 plus 1/2 is the same as 18 and 1/2. Okay, so I'm going to go through this next one just focusing on this so you can focus on the steps of polynomial long division. But again, it actually is exactly what you do with normal long division. Okay, so I'm going to do another one with you. Again, the more that we do together, I promise, the more you'll get. Okay, so first step, we're going to divide the dividend. This is my dividend. If I can spell it right. Jeez Louise, Miss Long. Dividend. The dividend. This is the divisor. Okay. All right, so first step, we put the divisor on the outside of the long division bar and the dividend on the inside of the division bar. Which actually, we need to redo this because, like I warned you about earlier, we can't just throw this in here. We actually have to put in 0 placeholders because these are supposed to go down by 1 each time. Okay, so this is what we're actually going to do. Alright, these must go down by 1 each time. If not, I have to put a 0 in its place, and I will explain why in just a moment, I promise. Alright, so I got x to the 4th. Alright, the next thing you should technically see is an x to the 3rd, but if you see, I don't see one. So I'm going to put a 0 in its place. 0 x to the 3rd. 0 times x to the 3rd is just 0. So it's like I'm actually putting nothing there. Okay, then the next highest exponent I should see is an x squared. I'm going down by 1 exponent each time. So x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, now I see an x squared. So it'd be minus 3x squared. Okay, then the next term I should see is x to the 1st. Holy hot dog, there's not an x to the 1st, so that means I have to put in a 0 placeholder. So 0 x to the 1st. And the last thing you should see is the number without the x, which is 18. So minus 18. Okay, guys, this is very important. We must put in these 0 placeholders, and again, I promise I'll explain why in just a moment. Okay, let's get going. So, you start with the first term, x, and you look at the first term here. You say x times what will give me x to the 4th. Holy hot dog, you guys are so smart. X to the 3rd times x will give me x to the 4th. So then, you guys, we're going to multiply both of these to this term. We're going to multiply, but we're going to do the opposite down here. So be careful. We multiply up here, but do the opposite down here. Okay, guys, let's get this show on the road. X times x to the 3rd is x to the 4th, but I'm going to do the opposite of that down here, which is negative x to the 4th. Okay, then I multiply the second number to that. Negative 2 times x to the 3rd is negative 2x to the 3rd, but I do the opposite down here, which is positive 2x to the 3rd. Alright, we're going to add down. So negative x to the 4th minus x to the 4th, holy hot dog, they cancel out, which if you guys notice, the first term should always cancel out. Okay? Now, this is why we have the 0 placeholder, you guys. I have a cubic term right here. I'm trying to add to something, my 2x to the 3rd. If I wouldn't have put in my 0 placeholder, there would have been nothing to add to it, and we would have had problems. That's why we put in 0 placeholder, so we always have something to add to down here. So let's add down. 0x to the 3rd plus 2x to the 3rd is 2x to the 3rd. Okay, now, we must always bring down as many terms as we need to make sure we have as many terms as we have up here. I have 2 terms up here, so I must always have 2 terms down here. So I have 1 term, which means I'm going to bring down another term to make it 2 terms. Okay, so now we go down here, and I ask myself, x times what gives me 2x to the 3rd? That's right, you guys, it's going to be 2x squared, and it's a positive, so plus 2x squared. Alright, so I'm going to be multiplying both of these to that number, but we're going to do the opposite down here. So I did the opposite here, same thing on the next step. So x times 2x squared gives me 2x to the 3rd, but I'm going to do the opposite down here, which is a negative 2x to the 3rd. Then I'm going to multiply negative 2 to that number. Negative 2 times 2x squared is negative 2x to the 4th, but I'm going to do the opposite, which is positive 4x squared. Okay, negative 2 times 2x squared is negative 4x squared. Down here we do the opposite, which is positive 4x squared. Okay, now we add down, you guys. 2x to the 3rd minus 2x to the 3rd cancels out, turns to 0. Holy hot dog. And negative 3x squared plus 4x squared is positive x squared, or 1x squared. Okay, and I need as many terms down here as I have up here. So I have 2 terms up here, which means I need 2 terms down here. So I'm going to bring down 1 more. Okay, let's keep going. So now I go down here. X times what gives me x squared? Holy hot dog, you guys are so smart. That is a positive x. Okay, next, I'm going to multiply both of these bad boys to that number, but do the opposite down here. Okay, so x times x is x squared, but I'm going to do the opposite, which is negative x squared. All right, and then negative 2 times x is negative 2x, but I'm going to do the opposite, which is positive 2x. I'm going to add down. Sorry, guys, I'm running out of room. So x squared minus x squared cancels out, turns to 0. And 0x plus 2x will give me a positive 2x. Okay, so again, I have 2 terms up here, so I need 2 terms down here. I got one. I'm going to bring on down the next one. Okay, and I'm going to write this up here, you guys, because I'm running out of space. Okay, so just imagine that this right here is down there. Okay. Alright guys, so now we move down here. We look at the first term here in this x. X times what gives me 2x? Holy hot dog, you are correct. It is a positive 2, so I'm going to write plus 2. Okay, then I multiply both of these to here, but do the opposite down here. So, again, you guys, all these have been the opposite. So we did the opposite here and the opposite here. And we're about to do the opposite again. Okay, we're about to do it again. I'm going to write it on this side because I have more space over here. All right, we do the opposite over here. Okay, so x times 2 is 2x, but I'm going to do the opposite, which is negative 2x. And negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, but I'm going to do the opposite, which is positive 4. All right, I'm going to add down. 2x minus 2x is 0, cancels out, and negative 18 plus 4 is a negative 14. Okay, now I go down here. There's nothing left to bring down, so that's probably telling me I'm at my remainder, but we might as well try. X times what gives me negative 14? There is nothing. I can't multiply x to anything and get negative 14. So that means we have reached the end. So this right here, you guys, is my remainder. Alright, so our final answer. We're going to write our quotient, which is what we got up here. So I'm going to write my x to the third plus 2x squared plus x plus 2. And then we always put the remainder over our divisor. So I'm putting negative 14 over x minus 2. There, we're done. So plus negative 14 over x minus 2. And that, you guys, would be my final answer. And we're done with this one. So hopefully this process is starting to make sense. Again, if it's not, I promise we're going to practice some more in class. Alright guys, I hope you love long division as much as I do.